Hello, everyone. My name is Donovan Henson, and my PowerPoint presentation is on the stigmatism of seeking help and getting care for mental health. So, what is mental health? As defined by the World Health Organization, it is a state of well being in which an individual realizes their own abilities. It means that you're capable of coping with the normal stresses of life, or can work productively, and can contribute to your community. The World Health Organization recognizes that mental health is a fundamental component of overall health and well being, and that it is essential for individuals, communities, and societies to thrive. So, here on the left is a chart of the top 20 contributors to the World Health Organization and what they do. The World Health Organization has a lot of responsibilities of taking care of people and defining what is and who is entitled to what type of care. Um, I think in 2019, I'm sorry, sooner than that, I think it was in the 80s, they deemed healthcare as a human right and necessity. The stigmatism of seeking help. People think that it perpetuates weakness and inability to take care of oneself. The lack of understanding and education can lead to negative attitudes and stereotypes. The stigma also associated with mental health can healthcare can prevent individuals from seeking help, and fear of potential loss of opportunities due to mental health records. So there's a lot of things that can impact and influence whether or not someone gets help. Sometimes they see it as weakness, and it's just kind of a devolving issue that keeps getting worse. And because they don't want to seem weak or afraid, they don't reach out to anyone, which could potentially end in something far worse. Here on the left is another chart between 2008 and 2018 of why people chose not to uh, receive mental health care. So at the top, I think is one of the most important for us as United States citizens, could not afford cost. So we just talked about how the World Health Organization deemed healthcare a human right, and people in our country, at least, are still afraid because of the price that they could potentially have to pay to get that care. Then people thought they could handle it without the treatment, which sometimes is true, sometimes, as we all know, is not. Didn't know where to go, didn't have time. A lot of these issues are addressed by friend or family communication. Here's a chart of suicide. Again, like I talked about previously, that devolving circle of not seeking help can eventually lead to even more unfortunate circumstances, suicide being one of the most prominent. Estimated 703,000 people died by suicide in 2019 alone, and that equates to one person every 40 seconds. Here again is the chart between 1999 and 2020. As you can see, it is increasing. So, how to combat the stigma? Encourage education, promote that getting help shows strength, be there for friends when they need you. I mean, that means asking them, considering if they might need help, notice, try to pick up on behaviors, and sometimes there's nothing that other people can do, and unfortunately that's the unfortunate reality of the circumstances. But with me personally and my friends who I was in the military with and deployed with, every now and then we just call each other and just say, "Hey man, how you doing?" And sometimes that's all it needs. I know when I've been at my lowest points, that definitely brings me up. Just a friend reaching out to talk, just because they just want, my company, whether it be on the phone or in person, someone coming to visit. But it's important to have and maintain those friendships. So here we have the advocacy, campaigns, and awareness. So as we all know, there's the suicide hotline, the prevention hotline with the number there. There's the 22 a day for veterans, which is again an advocacy program to bring notice to the situations that people are dealing with. And that's where one of the most prominent issues with the stigmatism lies is You have all these hard-headed people who have served in the military that think, oh, I'm tough enough, I can handle this myself, I don't need help. And again, that same thing just evolves and gets worse and worse because these people thought they were stronger than they actually were, when in reality, they're actually stronger for seeking help than they were to go the unfortunate ladder. And the media approach. So this one differentiates between various media organizations. Some of them won't even talk about it at all. And I think it can be a good approach and it cannot. It has a lot of personal influence, and that personal influence is, if somebody sees it and they choose in their own mind to glorify it, that someone else had elected to commit suicide in a certain way, um, then maybe there's, someone else who thought, well, that's wrong, now I definitely don't want to. And it really comes down to individuality and the differences for certain people. What works for someone to seek out mental health care may not work for someone else. It may, make it worse for them. So what the media does, they try to avoid stigmatizing people. They have those advocacy programs that we talked about that they try to make more aware for people, and they're careful not to glorify it. They're very particular when they do present something like that to the public. And personally, I can't remember the last time that I saw anything on any kind of media network that referenced someone committing suicide. Um, and then again, like I talked about with the individuality of it, it's another unfortunate circumstance in which things can potentially improve or get worse. In conclusion, what can we do to encourage mental health awareness and people to get that care? You can develop appropriate avenues for help. That means, recommending someone who maybe has taken care of someone that whether it be a provider or even a friend who will sit and listen or do a good job. You can encourage people to talk to friends or family about how they feel, asking their emotions, how are you doing lately, and not just the typical, oh, how you doing, but how are things, and really dig into it and listen. I think empathy is one of the most important aspects of this, and considering how people feel. Personally, my dad, for the longest time, who is an Air Force veteran, he refused to go to the VA because he said to me, well, there might be someone else who needs that care more than I do. I was like, no, no, no. You have to go and get that care. You're entitled to it. You've served your time, and it's now time for you to get taken care of. You can't just keep putting it off like that. And again, that's another thing with the hard-headedness of the military members who think, well, I'm tough enough, I've dealt with it this long, and things just can get worse and worse. So we can continue to promote promote advocacy and that campaign involvement. The another one I didn't talk about was the Yellow Ribbon Program for veteran suicide, also, which is a different kind of financial resource that seeks to help veterans who have dealt with that suicidal tendencies, and ensure people are aware that they're stronger for getting help, not weaker. And here are my references, and that concludes my presentation.